Hello, hello. Good morning, and welcome to Morning Medley number 77. Oh, hi, Leanna. That song's called Clover Salad. visiting Fickle Witch. Oh, word, yeah. Wow, that's marvelous. I mean, I guess the first time I met Johnny was at Jack LA, but it's such a distant memory. I remember after Jack LA, a lot of us went to IHOP, and I ended up hanging out outside of IHOP. I think he sat with us and ate with us, and then afterwards, I just ended up talking to him for a little while. He, at the time, he lived really, really far. He lived in Lompoc, which is pretty far. Which is pretty far. And then I remember when he did eventually move to LA, I was one of the first people that he hung out with. We went to go. We went to go. Did we get food? It doesn't really matter. Anyways, we hung out. But yeah. He's been doing a lot of stuff actually with Dorian Electra for the past few months. Um, but I will check out that video when I get a second. Does water ever taste sad to you? That sounds so stupid, but that bummed me out for some reason. Anyways, that's a new chord progression that I have for an upcoming song. I started it last night. It sounds very unlike like a typical Omni chord progression. I don't know how apparent my habits and signatures and traits are prevalent in my music to you guys, to you people who are listening to it on a completely unbiased platform. Um, hello, Zephyr. Welcome back to the stream. I don't know how apparent it is to you guys when you're just listening to it versus me when I'm making it, but there are kind of like omni chords, or at least omni believable progressions. Typically like really jazzy stuff, but like low level jazzy stuff like this. It's easy for Minnesota, not trying to interrupt what you're saying, but just glad to see you again in the stream. I haven't been able to make one in a while. Word up, Zephyr. I knew it was you. I mean, I assumed it was you because of the name Zephyr, but I'm glad to see you make the jump from Instagram over here to YouTube, which is my home now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, really typical movements and chords. For some reason, this sounds unlike any of the chord progressions that I tend to play. Me, Omni. And then in the descending chord progression, I'm trying to do this thing where somebody told me about something called voice leading. At least I think that's what it's called. I'm not going to get too into it because I don't even know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. But a lot of times in my chord progression, I will have a melody or a bass line nested in it. Nested in the chord progression. So when I say a melody or a bass line, here is a chord progression. Here's the chord progression for Suspended in Love's third phase. It's this. Sorry. Now, those could just be chords, but it's a bass line. It's a moving bass line. The bass line of this section is. And so all I've done is I've constructed chords that happen to use that note in the bass. So this chord, that chord. Good morning, Lindsay. It's nice to see you back. This chord, and this chord. Now, those are just chords, but the part of it that is the like movement is the bass. You're supposed to be following the bass. Because any other type of voice leading wouldn't make very much sense. Because if you go from here to here, aren't changing that much in the top part. They're actually staying the same. So if you go off of just the top note, it's so there really isn't a lot of movement there. It only changes notes twice, and it's to go between two different notes. But the bass line has more of a movement. So in a lot of my chord progressions, I'll have a bass line nested in. This is also apparent in my Bad and Bushy remix. The part of the progression that's moving the most is the bass line, which starts here, has a little roll up to there, and then a roll up to there. As far as the chords are just so it really only is two chords. It's the movement of the bass line that creates a more rich harmony. Said all that to get to voice leading, which is I might be using this term wrong, so I don't want any like music people who actually know music theory to tear me to shreds on this. But and there are several of my songs where the melody is part of the chord progression. I don't want to lose anybody, so I'm gonna like go kind of slowly through this, somewhat slow for me anyway. Here is an example of a melody that is completely independent from a chord progression that I have made. I'm gonna do over and under, right? So the over and under chord progression is this. That's the chord progression and the rhythm, but we won't get into that. And then the lead is. So they're completely separate, right? They're not part of the same thing. And then there are slightly more gray areas when it comes to melodies. Like my most played example of that is keyline. If you listen to keyline, the melody for keyline and the chords are kind of one thing. So the melody, for the most part, at each step, is the highest note of the chord. It's part of the chord. So that is just a chord. I just took the highest note from it and used it to start the melody. And then even when I play the second note of the chord, it's also a note in the chord. The chord is and so I'm just using these chords, the notes in the chord. This is the second chord, and I'm just using the same notes again from the chord. Again, using the highest note. These are chords. These are chords. This is voice leading, I think. But the difference of that obviously would be if I was playing the chords down here. So if I was like up here doing something. But instead I'm playing just the notes from the chord. And when I have a song that uses pretty direct forms of voice leading, it's hard for me to play the melody separate from the chords, because what is the difference? The chords are the melody, and the melody is the chord progression. Another more gray area, this is in my song Into Thin Air. This song, sorry, I have to like fast forward through the song to get to the point that I'm trying to play. Here we are. Now one could say that the melody of that part is. See, it's hard for me to play with my hand. I gotta play play it with two hands. I'm so sorry, guys. We'll get to that's the melody, or is it the chord progression? Because I'm just going off of the chords. Wow, it's actually very, very difficult because this part of the song doesn't have chords. It has a very, very complicated melody or arpeggio that gives the idea of chords. If I'm playing this, now somebody can say that there's a chord progression in there, but there actually isn't because I've never played a chord in that arrangement. Because I'm never actually playing more than one note at a time. If you, well, never playing more than two notes at a time, and we know that chords are bigger than that. So if you look at me play it, so there aren't actually any chords in that. It's just a really weird arpeggio melody. It's like a combination of the two. But hello, good morning, Cosm. Good morning, Max. But if I wanted to actually figure out what the chords were of that, I could. If I hummed the melody of the whole reason that I got into all of this is because um, typically when I'm writing melodies, I like to do voice leading because it's easier for me to remember the melody. Really complicated melodies, if they're nested in the chords, are a lot easier for me to recall. And even for a song like the chord progression that I was playing at the very top of the stream, this one. Um, completely different. Completely different. And the reason that it's different is because I am using voice leading. Uh, Also, another reason that I use voice leading is physical limitations. I only have two hands. And since I'm usually playing solo piano and not a part of some type of ensemble or band, it leaves a lot of the it leaves a lot of the composition for me to play. I have to fill in a lot of the gaps. So if I were playing, what's a good example of a song? I talked about this in an Instagram story recently where I said I usually play chords at a lower register because they sound more rich to me, and that's because I'm trying to fill out the bass end of all of my songs. If I'm playing a song up here, that's all fine and well, but I am missing bass notes. So what I'll typically do is move my chords to be played somewhere in this area. So it gives this, this is my bass register. So I play it a little bit lower. Another reason another thing that a result of having limited hands and limited space is that I have to go about voice leading out of just lack of fingers. So if I'm going to be playing chords and I'm also going to be playing bass notes, that takes up two of my hands, right? A good example of chords and bass note is, I guess, the Suspended in Love thing, right? Or the Bad and Bougie remix. Bass note, chords, or the Gucci Gang remix. Bass note, chords. So a lot of the time, I will have to differentiate the two. Bass note chords, bass note chords. Now, if I was trying to do melodies now, I have to kind of leave out the bass because again, I only have two hands. I have to choose. Do I want to do um, bass note and melody? Not really. The reason why I don't want to do bass note and melody is because typically these are both monophonic. Monophonic means one note at a time. There's a lot of keyboards that are monophonic. I'm not going to get into that. But when you're thinking about a bass note, the bass note is not hitting chords typically. It's hitting one note at a time. Melody can be the same way. In most cases, the melody is only hitting one note at a time. If you think about my melody from Over and Under, even my melody from Spring Street, they're hitting one note at a time. They can be complex, but they're not going to be polyphonic. So if I were just playing let's say a bass note, here we go. I could do the bass line and the melody. It's just kind of empty because there is no chords, there's no rich harmony happening. So if I'm going to choose two things to play, it's either going to be bass note and chords or melody and chords. I always need the chords. I'm talking me personally. I need the chords there. So I can alternate between either playing the chords with the bass or the chords with the melody. Um, oh, word up. Well, enjoy your pizza, Cyber. I haven't been to Mod Pizza in a really long time. Trying to stay focused. Okay, so I have to play the chords, but I get the second thing that I can add is I can either add a bass note or I can add a melody. Now there is kind of a cheat to this that I have learned just through experience or through limitations, is that you can do all three, but if you're gonna do all three, you're gonna have to do some weird combination of one of those two things. I mean, one of those three things. So you can either combine the bass with the chords, or you combine the melody with the chords. Now, combining a melody with the chords is what I was talking about earlier, which would be voice leading, I think, which is like keyline. Now, that was an example of the chord progression from keyline. But combined by extending the chords to make a melody. Now, that is the melody and the chords. That's all nice. But what about the bass note? Now, if I try to do the if I try to do the bass note, it would be which is again fine, but now I'm missing the chords. So how can I play the chords and the melody with also the bass note? You could just play an octave of the lowest note in your chord with your pinky, with your left pinky. So instead of being it would be so you're adding these kind of rich notes in the bottom that give it the feeling of, oh, a bass line. There is a low end register here. Also, um, voice leading. So you can add the melody on top of that. Oh, hi Ava. Oh, Ava's here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Are you talking about me, Lindsay? You say I've learned something? I haven't learned a dang thing. I have learned the word voice leading, and I might be using it wrong. But this is more so an analysis of like an old song of mine, not necessarily something that I've done with any newfound um, information. I'm saying that as a solo musician, as a solo musician, I have to do a lot live, and I'm not trying to make this sound like more than it is. I'm just saying typically I've played in bands. And when I've played in bands, I will play chords, and I will be able to use both hands to make them very flowery chords, because I know that somebody is going to be handling the melody, usually a singer or a lead guitarist, and somebody's going to be handling the bass line, usually a bass guitarist or another keyboardist. It's going to handle the bass, so I could focus on chords. And in the same way, when I've been a bass guitar player, I haven't had to worry about chords because I've just had to fill out the bass note. When you're playing piano, especially solo piano, there are a lot of times where you're going to have to do bass, chords, and melody. And so a good way to combine those two is the way that I just showed. Another way to combine um, bass line and chords is to try to give a rhythm to the chords. Movement and the low registry can be perceived as bass, even if it's not really a moving bass line. I mean that to say having chords that do this instead of just chords that play the chord by itself. Now, doing this, sometimes your ear will perceive this, which isn't really happening. You're just playing an actual chord. But I think your brain will hear this bass line and also hear this chord at the same time if you do that. And so in my song Over and Under, I'm having my chords, I'm having my melody, and I'm having my bass line at the same time. Very rarely, and I mean, there's sometimes where I've like where I will let go of all three. Usually in the more like flowery arrangements that I have, like in Into Thin Air. So there's no chords that just happen there, nor is there a bass line, and there is a melody, but it's really just a lot of notes that are implying all three things. Now, no chords are being played, but if you listen to it enough times, we can figure out what chords are being played. So the first chord. Okay, let me try that again. There it is. So the first chord would be. Am I playing those chords while I'm playing the melody? Absolutely not. But it's implied by the notes that I'm playing. Another good example of that is the bridge of Spring Street, which goes like this. I messed that up a little bit. But I covered this in a more, I think a stream maybe like 10 streams ago, where I talked about how the bridge of Spring Street is really this chord, that chord, that chord, and then that chord. And so I said all that to say that I typically will lean on voice leading if I'm playing complex chords because I just don't have enough fingers to play an actual melody left. So the chord progression that I came up with last night, this one, chords are just. But a if I wanted to make a melody around those chords, it would be very hard for me because the left hand is already taken up doing the bass line, and the right hand is already taken up doing kind of complex chords, or at least chords that are 4 notes or more, so take up the entirety of my hand. So what I could do, like I do in keyline, is nest or bury a melody inside of the chord progression. So I could play So there's more of a melody there now, way more than when I just played this. Now there's a little bit more movement. So that's what I'll typically do when playing songs. The only problem with that, the only drawback of doing heavy voice leading, the only drawback of doing like heavy voice leading is that I can't do like a lot of I can't do a lot of notating. And when I say notating, I know like notation is an actual thing that happens. People will do notating like on sheet music. I cannot do that. So when I say notating, I mean like mental notation. Like in my brain, I know that the Winter Heart melody is. Yeah, there it is. But other melodies are a little bit harder for me to parse because either voice leading or because they're buried in like a world of notes, like in Into Thin Air. Like I don't really know. I know some of the notes in that. Something like that. I think that a lot of the time when I'm doing voice leading, what I'm really doing instead of playing a melody is I'm just playing a chord and messing around a little bit in the space of that chord. So if I'm playing this one, the melody might not be exactly the same every time I play it. I feel like if I played it over and over again, the melody is probably going to change gradually each time I play it, but that's not because I'm trying to make it change. It's just because I'm kind of just riffing around. A lot of people would call this improv, but a lot of improv is where my melodies come from. The main melody in Over and Under was just improv. I was just messing around in this chord. I was trying to play those notes just really fast and in a random order. And it ended up being kind of catchy, so I kept that as the melody of Over and Under. But it's happening a lot more with songs that I'm coming up with recently. Oh, Alma's here. Hello. Alpha. Did you ever play Street Fighter Alpha? I'm getting distracted again. The chord progression that I talked about yesterday, this one. That chord progression. lost the thread on that one a little bit, but the point is that that early chord progression, I can hear the melody in my head. It's that. But the interesting thing about that melody, it's only three notes. It's only three notes. But the interesting thing about that melody is if you listen, it's actually voice leading. It's voice leading in the end. It's not its own separate melody. It's just the highest note of the chords I'm playing with my right hand, which is chord number one, chord number two, chord number three, chord number four, chord number one, chord number two, chord number three, chord number four. So a lot of my melodies, especially a lot of my simpler melodies, they tend to be really nested in my chord progressions. I'm trying to get away from this at least slightly because I think that it's a thing that I only do because I play piano. There are a lot of things that artists don't necessarily talk about or they don't take into consideration, and that is creation through limitation, right? If I'm going to be writing music, especially music like the chord progressions that I write, I used to write chord progressions that went everywhere, but they were limited by my knowledge of instruments, right? So I would write a chord progression that made sense to me, but maybe didn't make a lot of sense to a musician or didn't make a lot of sense to a piano player. Coming back a little bit off of that, now I'm writing music in the context of a piano, but I'm limited in that I only have 10 fingers and I can only really hit 10 notes. Um, and even in those 10 notes, they have to be roughly in a specific range that my fingers will be able to reach. I'm saying all that to say that when I'm working on a lot of these chord progressions, the reason I'm doing voice leading, the reason I'm doing melodies that are simply the highest note of a chord progression is because when you play chords, guys, sorry, this has been a very wordy, very talkative stream only for me. I apologize. But the reason that voice leading is very easy and also apparent is because if you're listening to chords, you're naturally going to hear the highest note as a melody and the lowest note as a bass. So, if I played these five chords, that sounds like the melody, right? No. There it is. If I play these chords again, the melody you would hear is. And the reason you're hearing that as a melody, maybe you're not, but most people, and I'm most people, is hearing. The reason you're hearing that as the melody is because it is the highest note of those chords. And then the bass note, of course, and that would be. Sorry, there. And so you're going to hear the lowest note as the bass, you're going to hear the highest note as the melody, knowing that if somebody just plays a chord progression with no actual melody on top of it, your ears searching for melody will just hear the highest note that's being played as the next note in the melody. Um, yes. And so because of that, the voice leading is kind of like the lowest common denominator for me as a composer and as a producer, because if I come up with a cool chord progression and I'm really grinding through it, and I finally have that chord progression where I want it to. After hearing it over and over and over, my brain will think that the melody of that chord progression is da 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 da, which it doesn't really have to be. It's just that that's the highest notes that my ears are hearing. Happens a lot. Happens a lot. So instead, what I'll try to do. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. Hatcher. Hatcher. Oh, that's actually kind of cool name. Hatcher's a pretty cool name. Sounds like a what are they called? Sounds like a transformer. One of the bad ones though, like a Decepticon, not an Autobot. But my brain will automatically hear the highest note as the melody, which is kind of again the lowest common denominator. It's the easiest thing to do. So what I try to do is not get too married to what I think I'm hearing as a melody and voice leading, and instead write a new unique melody. If I wrote this chord progression, no, this one. The melody in those four chords is the highest note, which is only two notes. And so, in ignoring what I would naturally go to as a melody, I will play the chords and instead do stuff over it to find a new, unique melody. And that's how I ended up finding the melody for Winter Heart. People can make the argument, and they will do it all day and all night, whether voice leading or independent melody is more memorable, catchy, more pleasant to the ear. And I'm not going to do that argument here in this stream because it's not that important. But last night I came up with that chord progression. And that should be fun. Okay, I have played almost nothing in this stream because I spent roughly 40 minutes talking about melody and how I built them. But that's what the stream's for, people. That's what it's for. Anybody got any good weekend plans? Being single? Do you really have to plan being single? Ooh, yeah, go watch the Sonic movie. Sounds like a good idea. Oh. Lana selling dresses. Well, Lindsay has a second date and sister is coming to visit. I hope you have fun with both things. Oh, your sister's also a musician? face tattoo, says Alpha. Word, word, word. Oh, man. I'm sorry. Convincing somebody not to get a face tattoo is very funny. It's very funny to me. Um, Playing a cello is really soothing, says Leanna. Hmm. Hmm. I don't have the authority to speak to anyone about tattoos because I have none, nor do I have any interest of getting any. Hello, Washington. Welcome to the YouTube stream. You've made Morning Medley number 77. Lindsay is asking for my weekend plans. Um, my weekend plans. My weekend plans. Well, today is Friday. Today I have quite a bit of work to do, but then I think I'm gonna try to go to the beach or something. I want to go. LA's a very big place, and sometimes when you're out in it and you see something you didn't know was there, or you see something you hadn't seen in a long time, you think to yourself, I gotta get out more. I went last night to I don't know, like a monthly that happens in Chinatown. Great music, great people. Um, and I ran into people that well, I'll make this really short. I ran into a man named Edwin who I hadn't seen since 2015, and he said, Omni, is that you? And I said, it's me, it's Omni. I said, hello, Edwin. And he said, wow, you haven't changed a bit. What are you doing now? And I said, music still. And I said, what are you doing? He says, I've left music. I'm now in the cannabis business. If you live in Los Angeles and you're trying to make a lot of money really quickly, you get into the cannabis business. But he's in the cannabis business right now. And he says, so how's music going? And I says, music's going great. Last time you talked to me, I was absolutely no one. Now I'm no one, but a bigger one by that. And then he says, well, congratulations on that. Hope to see you around. Probably not going to see him around. But the interesting thing about Edwin is that to me, he's like a distant memory, right? But how do I want to put this really, really quickly? To me, he's a very distant memory. But I I met him when I moved here, which means LA is like a new chapter in my life. I always see it as a new chapter, but I guess after 5 years, I have to start looking at it a little bit more realistically, which is that it's not a new chapter of my life. It just is my life now. And so that I can go out and into Chinatown and run into somebody that I haven't seen in 5 years, but there's somebody that didn't know me before I came here. Anyways, point is, I went out and I thought to myself, wow, I know a lot of people in LA, and I just don't see them, not because they've left or I've left, but I just don't really go out that much, at least not to like nightlife, especially in Chinatown. So today I figure I'll go somewhere new. There's an area of Los Angeles called Frogtown, USA. It's very pretty. There's a lot of little ice cream shops. I might go there. Or maybe I'll go to Los Feliz, or maybe I'll go to the beach. But not Santa Monica or Venice, not one of the like touristy beaches, like one of the tinier beaches, like Hermosa or Manhattan Beach, or maybe even Redondo Beach. I'm gonna go somewhere though, that's for sure. Make it an adventure out of the day. Well, congratulations to your friend with their Sonic tattoo. I did see the Sonic movie. I loved it. Um, I'm not going to. I'm not going to talk about it, just in case anybody here is going to see it and they don't want spoilers. I have a distant aunt that lives in Redondo Beach. Congratulations to you, Leanna. It's a very pretty place. If you come to visit, can we be friends? Absolutely. I don't know where I'm visiting though. Alexis, I don't know where you are. But yeah, I think this weekend is somewhat free. I have a field recorder now, so on Saturday or Sunday, one of the two, I'm gonna go up into the mountains and just record stuff. I like just recording stuff for for research. there's crows and they make this really weird like clicking sound. I kind of want to record that. There's also a weird bird. I'm not like a bird man, which is a movie that you should see at some point if you haven't already. But I'm not really a bird man. But there's a bird specifically that hangs out, well, a type of bird specifically that hangs out in the mountains about 30 minutes north of my apartment. That every time I go to the mountains, I hear this sound. And I know it's a bird. I don't know what type of bird it is, but I need this sound. And so I'm going to go and try to record that bird. I'm going to go bird hunting this weekend. But that should be Saturday or Sunday. Probably Sunday. Saturday. I guess I'll work on music. I don't know. I don't know. This is like, it's weird because the way weekends work for me, typically when I don't have to play a show or I don't have any prior engagements, the way a weekend typically works for me is I will give myself an arbitrary but mandatory amount of work to do. This weekend, I have to score 3 scenes in a project that I'm working on. So I will score those 3 scenes. How long is that going to take? It can take anywhere from 15 minutes to 9 hours. So, I will do that, and then after that, the time's all mine. You seem like you know where everything is. You know, Lindsay, somebody else told me that recently, and I was proud of myself. I was proud of myself because most of my friends in LA have lived here longer than me. And out of all those friends, they know the LA area way less than I do. And I think the reason that I know the LA area so well is because unlike the majority of the people that live in Los Angeles, I take the metro everywhere. I very rarely drive my car. When you drive a car, especially in Los Angeles, you spend most of your time on the highway, which is fast. Well, relatively fast. But it's faster, but you're not really seeing anything, right? You're seeing a big river of concrete, and then you're getting off and you're seeing maybe a few side streets before you get to your destination. There isn't a lot of in between. When you take buses and you take trains, you're seeing everything. I'm not just simply seeing the area that I live in, Los Angeles, and then I get on the highway and then I see downtown. I'm saying my area. Then I'm saying Highland Park, and then I'm saying Lincoln Heights, and then I'm saying Mission Vieira, and then I'm saying Lincoln Park is after that? Yeah. Oh, Lincoln Heights and Lincoln Park don't touch for some reason. But then I'm saying Lincoln Park. Then after that I'm saying Southwest Museum Station, and then I see Chinatown, and then I see Union Station, then I see the Financial District, then I see Little Tokyo, and then I see MacArthur Park, and I know all of these neighborhoods now that connect to get me from my home to my destination. Sometimes when you're on a highway, you don't really get to see all of that. Heck, sometimes even when you're on surface streets in a car, you don't really get to see all that because you're focused on driving, you're focused on not dying. But when you're on a bus or you're on a train, you don't really have to pay attention to anything other than what's outside the window. And so, having moved here and been homeless for a few months, and then riding my bike to work and taking buses and changing jobs so many times, it's caused me to see a lot of Los Angeles. That combined with the fact that when I lived here, every time I had a day off, I would just wander because I didn't have any friends in the city yet. So I would just get on trains and buses and I would go in random directions. Because the way the metro system works in Los Angeles is you only pay $1.75 per 2 hours. So you can actually get on like 10 buses if you want, and it'll only cost $1.75 as long as you do it all in under 2 hours. So I would just wander. I would take the Blue Line all the way down to Long Beach, then I would take buses from there to go deeper, and sometimes I ended up all the way in Orange County. Sometimes I ended up in Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach. Sometimes I ended up all the way up in the valley. Yeah, the metro in Los Angeles is very cheap. Word up, Ava. This pizza crust tastes like a thin saltine or something. Ooh, that is not even kind of appetizing. I'm not a big fan of mod pizza. I don't like when places try to make pizza healthy, but maybe you want the saltine crust. My friend was homeless in LA or San Diego for a month. It's a fun time. It's a fun time, Alpha. I would recommend it. Overseas, you paid for every transfer with more popular trains, so they're Um, yeah, trains are more expensive everywhere else that I go, but sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes in New York, I wouldn't say it is. In New York, I feel like I'm wasting my money. But there are places like Japan where the trains are more expensive than $1.75. But I like taking them. I enjoy them maybe a little bit more. They're better kept, well taken care of. Okay, Cyber is leaving. Cyber is leaving. Thank you for being in the stream, Cyber. I appreciate you as always. I hope you enjoy the rest of your pizza, assuming you haven't finished all of it. That saltine crust. Okay, that was a lot of rambling about Los Angeles. But yeah, I do know the LA area very well. And I try to keep tabs on things. The LA area is always changing, so sometimes you want to go back into Chinatown and see what's moved or see what's closed or what's open now. They just opened a really good dipping ramen place at the base of the new high rise in Chinatown. And if I didn't have Tsukumen already yesterday, I would get it again today. I would get it for the first time today. But I do like giving people LA tours. The only problem with giving people LA tours is something that I found out is that most of my friends, especially not from LA, the only most of my friends hate walking. The only people that I know that don't hate walking are my friends that come to visit me from New York. They can walk for hours, and I love them for it. But typically, I'll have some friends come out from a different state or a different city, and they will have like the Uber app out, and I'm just like, yo, put it away, baby. They're like, we're not gonna drive. I'm like, don't you worry about it. We're gonna buy you a Metro card, and they hate it. They hate the smell of pee on the subway. They hate that there's people fighting at the stations. They hate that there's cops everywhere. They feel unsafe and they feel very dirty for most of their travel. But I guess this is just something that I've grown accustomed to. I know you're saying. I read that, Lindsay. I read that as I walk anywhere, panties, just panties. And I was trying to, in my head, make sense of it before I responded. I was like, I mean, I guess I wouldn't recommend walking around LA in just panties, but a lot of people do. There's something really interesting about living in a heavily dense and populated area. It's almost like the the more outlandish you are, the less attention people give you. And I think it's because everybody in LA, I kind of feel this way in New York too, maybe even more so in New York than in LA. But but it's almost like a contest of nobody wants to be flapped. No one wants to be flapped. Everybody wants to be unflappable. Nobody wants to be shocked or astonished or taken aback or deer in the headlights. Everybody wants to be prepared and unfazed by everything they see. So while somebody could be on the subway and just start vomiting everywhere and screaming, everybody around them is going to pretend that they don't see anything. So there's like this really weird double standard where most of us would like to blend in, but in actuality, the more we stood out, well, we would like to blend in because we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. But the more we stand out, the less attention you get drawn to yourself. Because if I got on the subway and just my underwear, everybody is going to pretend that they don't see me. But if I get on the subway in my pants, people are probably going to look directly at me and maybe say something to me. Anyways, uh, yes, I haven't given an LA tour in quite some time. I am going to go over news now because we are 1 minute over and I'm trying not to make it a regular thing where we always go over time. So I have two albums out. One is called Ego Death, the other one is called Quick Breath. Quick Breath is uppity and bouncy. Ego Death is very sad and somber and ambient. I used to walk across town to the local grocery stores and buy treats for a bit cheaper instead of using the vending machine. Good for you. Support local business. Support local business. Those two albums can be found on Bandcamp, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon MP3, Tidal, Groove, Deezer, Pandora, Napster, and YouTube. As far as merch, it's coming. It's coming. I promise it's coming. It's going to be a t-shirt and stickers. As far as shows, still not allowed to talk about any of the shows coming up, but safe to say that they will be late spring throughout the summer. Um, I try not to play too much this early in the year. I try to use this time to gather my thoughts and my music, actually. Please support local Omni Boy, please. Please. Did I finish playing you Double Lutz? I did. I did. That one was for you. Thank you always for having named it. Sometimes I want to play it and I'll look in the stream and see if you're in here, and if you're not in here yet, I won't play it. Anywho, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the streams. The streams happen every weekday morning at 9 a.m. This is Friday, so this is the last stream of the week. I will see you guys back here on Monday, hopefully. But if not, I hope you guys have a good weekend. You know, the past couple of weekends have been hard for me. I'm joking. They've been very easy. Well, Valentine's weekend was great. Sonic came out. And then it was followed by President's Day. Everybody treated the entire weekend like it was Valentine's Day. I was out on Sunday and I saw people with like flowers and balloons and stuff, and I was like, "What? Valentine's Day was like 2 days ago. What are you doing?" But then I thought to myself, "Hey, maybe every day is Valentine's Day. You should also try to show love to things as much as possible." So I showed love to the Sonic franchise. Please give me a sequel. Please give me a sequel to that lovely movie. This song is called Hush Hour. Really quickly, how many of you guys have seen the movie Rush Hour? That Jackie Chan film. Valentine's is overrated, Alpha, but what isn't overrated right now? What does it mean to be appropriately or adequately rated? So, in the movie Rush Hour, there's a scene where Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker are outside, and it's the whole like war montage where Chris Tucker is teaching Jackie Chan how to dance, and Jackie Chan is teaching Chris Tucker how to successfully disarm somebody that has a gun pointed at them. I don't want to get into the details of this scene, but in that scene, they are standing outside of a restaurant, a very old restaurant in Chinatown. And last night, while I was waiting into the club, I was standing in front of that very same restaurant. And yes, I know. This is indeed the end, Thierry Vache. I have been streaming for an hour and 5 minutes. 5 minutes over. But back to my story. I was standing in front of that restaurant. And have I stood in front of that restaurant before? Yes, I've stood in front of that restaurant before. Even if you haven't seen the movie, there's a big painting on the side of the restaurant that says, "This is where Jackie Chan's Rush Hour was filmed." But something felt weird about it last night. I really thought about it. I really thought about how, wow, roughly 20 years ago, in this exact spot, Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker were acting in Rush Hour. Rush Hour is a very important movie to me because I'm a very big Jackie Chan fan. But I like really thought about it, and I'm like, that's cool. That's cool in a way. I'm not one of those super sentimental people that like crawls around on Hollywood Boulevard taking photos of the Hollywood stars. I don't really care what David Spade's favorite food is or where Adam Sandler buys his clothes. I'm not really one of those people. But I was standing in front of it and I was like, this street hasn't changed. They haven't really updated anything. It still looks like it did in the movie. It was kind of cool. I wrote this song in Hong Kong. I guess while we're on the subject of Jackie Chan. Oh, I'm so hungry. Jesus Christ. I always get hungry right at the end of the street. So, quick apologies for everybody in the stream that I did not go over a lot of my works, right? I didn't play a lot of Signal songs. Today was mostly me talking about relative harmony and how voice leading works in my songs and how I build a lot of my songs. Um, so, I hope that was interesting at all to you guys. Thank you always for being respectful to me and polite to each other. It's really a gift, you guys, what you guys give me every day on the internet. Because it's an awful place. This place, it's an awful place. This place we're in, but I hope you guys do have a good weekend. Real quick pause. Alva says there should be a music video with this and Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan's passing faces through the video. Um, what a good duo that was. What a good duo. Anywho, can't waste any more time. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. I will see you here on Monday for Morning Medley number 78. 100 draws, ever closer. Abo. Mm-hmm.